Okay, we're recording this for everybody who didn't make it to the first one. We're just starting. And I'm about to read this quote to contextualize a little bit about why this space, why now, what is this space? And this is from Grace Lee Boggs, a Chinese American organizer from Detroit, born in 1915, who lived a whole century to 2015 and was a part of all of the major, or most of the major resilience liberation movements of her times. So she knows what she's talking about. The time has come for us to reimagine everything. We have to reimagine work and go away from labor. We have to reimagine revolution and get beyond protest. We have to think not only about change in our institutions, but changes in ourselves. We are at the stage where the people in charge of the government and industry are running around like chickens with their heads cut off. It is up to us to reimagine the alternatives and not just protest against them and expect them to do better. We are at the point of a cultural revolution in ourselves and in our institutions that is as far reaching as the transition from hunting and gathering to agriculture 11,000 years ago, and from agriculture to industry a few hundred years ago. How do we reimagine education? How do we reimagine community? How do we reimagine family? How do we reimagine sexual identity? How do we reimagine everything in the light of a change that is so far reaching and is our responsibility to make? We have to think beyond capitalist categories. We can't expect them to make it. We have to do the reimagining ourselves. So that resonates really deeply with me, that we are in this time and that we need this level of reimagining, and that what's not working is at its core that deep, that needs that level of change. And that brings me to the Pan-African concept. This language is Twi, coming from the Ashanti people of what we know of as Ghana now. And they have a saying, a concept, an essential phenomena of the cosmology that says, Se wo were fina wo sankofa ayenki. And this means it's not wrong to go back for that which you have forgotten. And so there's, in most indigenous cultures around the world, we don't live in an infinite growth-based model where we're headed towards some idea that is always going like this, where we're trying to fix and improve where we live, where God says land is not worth anything unless we develop it. No, we come from a peoples, all of us, some time back, and for some of us very recently, who live in a world where we actually live on an earth that can balance itself, that has a perfect balance set up already. And our job is to exist within that balance and help to maintain that balance. And that the difference of those two paradigms is as different. The Gungon really want to be talking here. This is the West African, the Igbo, the Yoruba collective body behind me. So I wanted to create a space that was both a space where we could turn back towards that which we have forgotten, that which has been intentionally severed in order to create the thing that is happening now that we need to now reimagine. And then I wanted to create a space that's the same space where we're also dealing with the future. And so tonight is the ancestral connection space. And the full moon is the time in which we have spent time doing some synthesizing, connecting with ancestral wisdom. We are then sitting with that. We then drop in again and we connect to our visions, our needs, our desires for the future. And the idea is that most of the people I know are in both of these processes, and I wanted to hold a space to bring us together intentionally and collectively to do this process, both recollecting from the past and visioning into the future together. So, welcome. Thank you for coming. I would like to walk us through a little brief meditation as a way of kind of setting our own personal space and altars. Invite us to do a little intro, just saying our names, this indigenous land we're on, who our ancestors are that we know and want to claim, doing a tarot card as part of the setting of the space, and then jumping into some story sharing. Oh no. Okay, is it quiet? Thank you. Turn it up. Okay, is that better? Yeah. Is that even better? You can hear me good? Your face is okay, great. Thank you for asking. Please always interrupt me if something is needed. Okay, yeah, so let's drop into just a little brief meditation to set our spaces and inviting to figure out my lighting situation. I have the lamp in my lap. Sometimes you need the light close. Okay, so let's bring that inner light close. Yeah, just inviting a moment of dropping into the body and the breath. Bringing your attention, letting the most important thing right now be the inflow, the pathway, and the outflow of breath. Letting the breath bring us here to the present moment. To right now, a direct experience in this moment. Just notice what's present with you, what feels, what thoughts, what people, any ancestral stuff, what parts of the day, past, future, all of that, and just breathe through it. Let it be with you. Pay respect, nod, say hello, and be filled with the breath. And notice what brings you here today. Intention is such a powerful place in us for reimagining and for meeting this crazy ass world. What is it that made you choose spending an hour here on Zoom of all the possibilities and all the things you could be doing? What is it about ancestry? What is it about the space? What is it about what's up in your life? What do you need? What do you want? What do you sense? And I invite you to see if you can let your intention fill your body. Feel what it's like to really embody this intention or these intentions. What if this intention is the GPS system, is the map, is the vehicle to what the intention is about? What happens if you can really just be present and trust and surrender into this intention? And within this intention, see if there's anything you know about already, or if there's anything you discover now that feels like part of your offering to the ancestral intergenerational process we're a part of. How does why you're here right now connect to what you need to offer through your life to this world and to our ancestors and descendants and to yours personally? And when you're ready, just offer some gratitude to yourself for coming, for being on this journey that this is a part of. Offer some gratitude to all that brought you here, and to all where you will go. And when you're ready, at your own pace, I invite you to let your eyelids slowly lift open and see what it's like to stay in touch with your body, sensation, the intentions, while you also let the visual world back in. Yeah, really take it in, let it be embodied. See how much of the subtle senses you can let stay with you in the visual world. And I'm curious if y'all two over there would be down to draw our tarot card for the night. I'm imagining that you do have a deck near you. Yay! Okay. So this is for an altar for all of our intentions. This is like any ancestral messages that want to come through and speak through the tarot. This is to kind of help contextualize, guide, give us something to explore through as we share about our own processes, relationships to the ancestral worlds. Got that good shuffle in. Yo. Okay, the Emperor, number 4 in the major arcana, agency and order in the Creative Liberation Now deck, the Yang principle in Taoism. Okay, so we've got a card here with us reflecting the energy of the divine masculine, of expressive output of energy, of structure and order. Although I have question about that. That might be the patriarchy in the way that that comes through the deck, that order gets assigned to the divine masculine. Um, Maybe we're talking about specifically like systems order instead of natural order. Um, Interpret that as you will. Okay, cool. So first I want to invite us just to do a little name, land acknowledgement, lineages you belong to. It's in the chat as well. Invite everybody, if you're comfortable, you can pass if you need to. Just to introduce yourself and answer those questions. And then I'll have a little question for us. I'm Amani. I am coming to y'all from occupied Lisjan Chochenyo Ohlone territory, otherwise known as Oakland, California. And my peoples come from Turtle Island through the Anioniwa, the Choctaw, and the Okmulgee. They come from Africa via the transatlantic slave trade. I deeply resonate with the kind of West African folks, the Igbo, the Yoruba, the Fanti, the Twi, the Ewe, the Dogon up in Mali, the Amazulu down in South Africa, the Gikuyu over at the foot of Mount Kenya, Mount Gikuyu. But I don't know where those people come from in particular. And then my peoples are also from the British Isles, Gales, Celts, Picts, Brits, Anglo-Saxon folk, Germanic folk as well. Yee, we all here. I also come from like stars and all sorts of other places too, but that's another story. Who would like to go next?
Hello. My name is Carly Bates. We are coming to you from so-called Phoenix, Arizona. I am a descendant of Bates family by way of Washington, D.C., by way of West Africa. And also the Beeler family by way of New York, Connecticut, also Germany, I think.
Yeet.
Yeah. and then some.
Okay, welcome. Thank you for representing.
And I realized I don't know the tribes that were here before. This was Phoenix specifically. And I'm coming here from some coal mining towns in Pennsylvania and Detroit, Michigan, and Czechoslovakia and Kona, Italy, and I think Ireland and Poland.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Welcome. The world in the building. And I just did a quick little Google search for Phoenix tribes, and it's not being super specific, but I know that the Havasupai, the Hopi are near-ish. I know the Zuni and the Dene are near-ish. and there's like 20 others that are listed on that page to Arizona. So shout out to them as well. Juana, would you like to do a little check-in?
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to get my nail polish because it's in a situation where I could handle my phone.
Right. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Juana. I was adopted from one of the states on the Tibetan plateau. I don't know much about my lineage, but somewhere in the process, or in the province rather, of Sichuan, which is in one of the 4 states in the Tibetan plateau under China hegemonic rule. My mom is Malaysian Chinese, and I think not quite Bering Straits, but that is our like home culture rather than China, ancestrally. I'm still doing a lot of like soul searching and lineage exploration, mostly through visual cultures and textile cultures of my ancestors, but I don't really have a lot of pinpoints. And that's been a really, I think, like engaging and challenging and like life reflecting process, having those landmarks for me.
Okay, represent. Thank you. And thank you for sharing a little bit about your process in connecting to them and what the connection is like. I love that the textile connection. There's so much information and medicine and technology and language and cosmology and teachings that are in the cloths, that in everything that we indigenous folks make. We're always, all people make, we're always, telling everybody about the society we live in and what we think we're doing here and where we think we are through our art. You know what I'm saying? We do that today too. People wear hats that have all sorts of messages on them. Yeah. Okay. And I really appreciate you speaking to specifically the like having to go back and reconnect, and where there are access points and where there aren't, So I think that's my first question for us is just what's up in the realm of connecting to your ancestors. How are you, how is it hard, how is it fulfilling, why are you, just a general, what's it like for you right now? You can do popcorn style, and anybody who feels called to answer it.
Yeah.
Is that too big a question? Sometimes I ask really huge questions.
I guess for me, it feels a little bit like a void and something I haven't devoted a ton of energy or thought to. And I think part of that is because I kind of assume unfairly that it's an empty area when I know that's not the truth. So this is a good reminder that there's probably something there just to find or remember.
Will you say more about the, like, why do you have a sense that it's a void, and what's that sense that it's probably not?
I guess I don't really think often beyond like my grandparents, and I think I just assume that the whiteness in my background makes it empty and sad. And there's probably some truth to that, but also more depth than nothing.
Yeah, that's a really, I think that's a really common thing for us white folks, and for folks in general in our relationship to whiteness, which is Europeanness, which has lots of indigeneity in it, because that's what whiteness was, you know. In the United States, it was like, look, we're forming a corporation. If you pass the skin test, eventually you'll be welcomed into the possibility of becoming rich and wealthy and free. And so if you give up your soul and your culture and you say you're this corporate whiteness, then you could fuck with us and we'll potentially fuck with you. You know, you on the directory. And so we're still deep in that story and that belief and that experience. It proves itself to us because it's become so gutted and devoid. And there's so much richness. Yeah.
I feel like for me, that question has felt like maybe not too big, but unspecific. I feel like I know you were speaking towards these worlds of abundances that we get peeks into earlier, but aren't always grounded into with community and shared family members and soul members and ancestral members. But I've been really experiencing a lot of options. I feel like I've been able to see different parts of myself, like younger selves, and so many lines of like what seems like fiction, but like, you know, you have the choice to view it like that, and the choice to entertain it as a reality or an alternate presence, or, you know, different. They're just, I feel very aware of different lineages, different options that I have to choose in my reactions, in my how I concentrate my desire and my determination. And when I interact with that, like, how are you? I guess my immediate reaction is like, which part of me? Because it's hard to concentrate. And sometimes I feel like I am awake in all of these other worlds and all of these other things that feel important to me, important to visualize, important to speak to, give word of mouth to. And then it can be kind of hard to regulate in my somatic experiences, especially when those feelings are, you know, recovering from like wounded or painful or regressive, and also channeling through like growth and reintegration and parts of myself that never experienced those wounds as those wounds, you know. So I think I feel a little distracted, and not necessarily that is like, I don't know, such a pill. It's a blessing, you know. It feels like a blessing that to have choice, you know. But it is also a little fogged, and that's how I feel.
Yeah, thank you. That it feels like one of the biggest obstacles, blessings of our times. It's like part of why we're having this conversation is because of what's possible in these times. And we're on Zoom and we got homies from, you know, occupied Arizona, and like part of my ancestral reclamation process has been largely informed by how much I've been able to Google search, you know, and jump on the evil ancestry.com, where they're, you know, secretly converting people to what's the religion that owns that, ancestry.com? Mormonism. They're converting all the dead ancestors to Mormonism, which is why they have the library of ancestors in the first place. And so, right, like that as an example of like that particular service changed my life and allowed me to go on ancestral pilgrimages to walk the lands of my colonizer ancestors, to trace the story of the connections between my African, indigenous, and European ancestors. Wild shit. And they're doing this horrible thing. And so I feel like also part of the distraction, or the like which way to choose, is like it's no longer, we don't have one ecology anymore. It's no longer simple to prioritize like, this is me and mine and what I'm responsible to. We're being bombarded every day by all these peoples, and those of us who are universalists and compassionate hearted people and sensitive beings and empaths and connected to our oneness and our shared lineages, we feel that all, and it feels like it's happening to us or to our peoples. And yeah, just all the different ways that there are so many, that the disconnection from indigeneity kind of created this unrootedness and created this kind of, if you can figure it out and you can find it, you can do it and have it. You know, if you're living in a country that has that MO. And it makes me curious if there's any particular parts of you, Anna, that you are speaking to that show up here and are like, oh, I want to be here. I want to say something here. I want to ask something here. I want to be witnessed here. Any of the many, if you haven't already been doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think where I immediately go is this one of these teachings from an old boss, an old mentor. And she said something like, it's not enough to connect with like minds, with people who are just thinking in the same realms as you, thinking about the same things, even having the same interests. But what you really want to concentrate on is gravitating and investing towards community with like heart spaces. So y'all have similar processes and similar motivations of why you're placed where you are, and understandings of what that means to you. So I guess a part of what brings me to space, and also sorry y'all, I forgot the land acknowledgement, but I'm in Huichin, Lishanaloni, Oakland. But what brings me here tonight in this virtual gathering is to kind of root that everything that's in me and everything that's in each of y'all is valuable and holds the potency to contribute to this future, these futures, you know, because I think it's an illusion that we need to show up in some way or some form and always have a very like cause and effect intention to execution. So it feels like a play space, and I think, you know, I think I owe it to myself, and I love owing it to my people to engage seriously in play and the visualizations that come out of it. I don't know if that was amorphous, but I think that's what I have right now.
Yeah, thank you. I often have reflections and things to say in response to folks saying things, but please don't feel like you need to wait for me to do that, or like I'm the one that needs to be doing that if you have something to share. I was really touched by the like hearts, like minds, and the discernment between those being different. And that, yeah, just like instantly makes me like go into like, oh yeah, okay, what is the difference? Like hearts, like minds. Where have I been in space with like minds and like hearts? And it frees up possibility, and it hones, gives direction as well. And it feels like something that we really need right now. It's like if we can find folks who actually have like hearts but different minds, like that's really important, because we're doing looking at blind folks identifying an elephant experiment in this world right now as we reimagine. So we really need folks who are like, nah, this is a hose, nah, this is a rope, nah, this is a whatever the blind men see the elephant as.
I'm really chewing on and resonating with what you said, Juana, about imagination, and Ash, what you said about connecting beyond your grandparents, which has, yeah, led me to, yeah, think about my connection to ancestry in this way of like, there's so many kind of cutoff points or ways, either through distance or through the mystery of storytelling, or divorce, or yeah, all these ways that it feels like reaching back, or when I feel like I reach towards my ancestors, it also feels like reaching up. When reaching feels inaccessible for all of these reasons, which is why imagination feels like such an amazing tool for access. Like I often, yeah, I make up stories, I think too, or, you know, reflections about, like, there was one time my dad shared with me, like, he learned me to be someone who takes care of plants, and that was something similar, a similar trait that my grandmother had that I didn't know she had. So having these, you know, echoes, or these, have the sharing of these stories and these touch points and connections feels like really resonant, that I can like, oh, that's an access point, that's something to attach onto, that lets me like imagine what is it like to like prune roses with her, or to walk down the street with her, or to be in the kitchen with her. So there's this element of time travel, but it stops, or is harder to access beyond that particular generation, the generation of the grandparent. Yeah, so that's leaving me to, yeah, maybe think about imagining more or differently, or asking more questions. Yeah.
I really love that, the like hanging out with your grandma and like doing embodiment practices connected to things that you know that she loved, that you love, that comes through a direct connection through your pops.
Right.
And like that's a deep access point. There's a lot of information there, and you're figuring out a way to connect to it and access it and amplify it. You know, you're like, you found the holographic player to put on a particular aspect of it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, which I guess I'm remembering that in moments of stillness and intentionally connecting with my ancestors, yeah, the holographic image totally, like, I don't know who y'all are, but I'm imagining who you are, and I'm like creating that space, or creating that, yeah, that space, and that like imaginary but also real playground for us to connect. And I trust that. I feel like it can be more informed, but I also trust what that place is and how it's becoming.
As part of an ancestral reclamation process, and through ancestry.com, very easy to connect with my white ancestors who have money. So within the first 15 minutes, I was 16 generations back to somebody Cavendish, who was the tax man for King Louis VIII. And I could see his pictures. I could see the castle that still exists that I can go visit. I could read on Wikipedia about his story. Story is he is blamed for poisoning King Henry VIII and killing him, and then embezzling a bunch of money. No, I'm sorry. He embezzled a bunch of money, and story is he got killed, but the family got to keep the mansion. So like all of a sudden, all this information from white folks with money. The white folks without money who came over as refugees from the colonial project on the Celtic and Gaelic peoples, really hard to find. My African people, really hard to find. My indigenous people, almost impossible to find. And so I like found my third great grandparents on my father's side and was so juiced. Was like, I got 3 generations back. And I went to the church that those grandparents started and founded. It was still there. It wasn't an operating church, but there was a grave site there. They were there, buried there. I had this huge healing experience, deep weeping. I like felt the moment of huge rift in the Sims family in one of my lineages, where a big thing happened and they basically had to flee the South to the North because otherwise they would have been lynched. And I like felt that clear out of my body. 6 months later, I get a text from my auntie who I had asked before going on that journey for some information. And it turns out that was the wrong gravesite. Those were not my relatives. But I still got the healing. My ancestors were with me. I found a dead hawk in the middle of my path at a moment that I was praying. And for me, that's a very specific symbol for a very specific thing. And so it's this wild process where I got to discover that it didn't matter at all. The like physical material representations of it. I just needed to be on some earth nearby the land where my people were and think that that's what I was doing to connect to the access, the holographic plates inside of me, you know? So textiles can do it. Our imaginations can do it. You know, we are it. You know, in West Africa, we are literally the return of one specific ancestor with one specific purpose here to do a thing for the whole. We are not an individual. We are a cycling intergenerational body collective together. And I imagine that that's pretty true for most indigenous people around the world, something like that. So we literally are them, you know? And epigenetics, if you want to look at science, it's like we literally carry the information, our genetic information, and the epigenetic information is much more sensitive than genetic information, where the things we create and we do in our lives that are about passion, pleasure, pain, actually transfer to one generation ahead of us. And if they don't shift it, they'll keep passing it. They can shift the epigenetics and change what's passed, change the markers. Yeah, anyway, so we carry so much of the information that has been taken from the conscious mind. Okay, so we have 8 more minutes. I would like to ask a kind of directive question, but if other folks have anything else you want to ask or say, I invite you to do that first. Yeah. Okay. So because we drew the Emperor, I think I want to ask about what's your sense of what you need in terms of action to take one step closer in the direction that you want to. And yeah, just to invite it to be spoken out loud and to be witnessed and to be considered. And it doesn't have to be the step. What's one thing that you want to do? Just to like, Emperor, okay, cool, let's take some action. Let's like embody this and put it in the forms of our lives. Since we got so much of it, we can bring it more into form.
For me, there's a gap between, because I feel very spacious. I do feel like I'm able to soothe to the level of like, okay, let's assess, let's see the paths, and let's see the modalities. You know, I'm able to, I feel connected to my agency most of the time,
Mhm,
which is a huge blessing.
mhm,
And I feel like I take advantage of that blessing and perhaps like really ring it for what it's worth in the privilege of spaciousness, and that turns to like anxiousness in
mm,
the space between thought and action. And so something I think I will do in the next week is, I guess, less second guessing. I feel like I've been in kind of a self-skeptical period. With just not even just to myself, like in general, kind of the skepticism, an atmosphere of skepticism has been around. And in that, there are times where I'm like, oh, I need to do this. Let's wait. Let's just see it. Let's just observe. And then in that observance, I want to do like 20 more things, want to start a bunch of different projects. And then the grounding of, you know, the equinox and all of this, like coming back to the root, ends up being a little like dissatisfying or disturbing.
Yeah.
And I think I need to get more comfortable in the like exhale of the breath, like let's come back and like let's do what we came here to do. I think that's how I'm going to characterize the energetics of my intention.
Mm, I love it. Thank you.
I really resonate with like like one thing immediately came to mind, and then I started being like, oh, and I could like research more about Ancona and talk to my grandma and like all these. But the one thing that like really felt important is just to ask my, when you said questions, like ask my dad questions about his relatives who I never met,
Mm.
and just to get to the grandparent level on his side, and
Mm.
then maybe go beyond that would be really, I think, really beautiful.
I had a similar thought related to maybe sometime last year, I was inspired to honor my ancestors on an altar, which I have kind of fallen off from doing since moving. And in setting up that altar, I asked my parents what were some of the favorite foods and libations of their parents, and that was such a great question. I like no idea it would inspire such excitement.
Mm.
So the altar is coming to mind, and related to what I shared earlier, I feel like my mom specifically is uncomfortable, or I've received messages about her discomfort answering these questions or kind of going back. And despite that message, she is willing to share. So I'm kind of hearing and taking on like my role is like, yeah, and thinking about these access points or dead ends, like my mom specifically is a resource, but if she provides a dead end, that I don't have to stop there, I guess. Like I can seek other ways of connecting that don't necessarily have to be like permissed by her. And because it feels larger than that. It feels larger than, sometimes I feel like I'm doing it for or on behalf of her or my parents. But in this moment, I feel the clarity of that's not true. That might be part of the truth, but it's not the whole truth. And that, there's some freedom in that.
I really resonated with the I'm deeply connected to my ancestors. They talk to me all the time, and sometimes I can ignore them or wait too long or ask them to do it without doing my part. And so there's a kind of within all of that, treat my ancestral relationship like it's one of my closest relationships. I wouldn't do the same things I do sometimes to the ancestral conversations to my partner or to my best friend or to, and so there's increase the reality of their presence. And I want to ask that question of my mother and my father's family, because he's in the ancestral realm now, about what are the favorite treats. And I want to invite my family, my larger family, to participate in offering foods to the ancestors during the holidays. And I need to reach out to my father's family. It's I'm at the age where they're at the generation where there's like one or two folks left that are his age and that carry all that information. So I need to prioritize spending regular time with them and maybe recording their stories on Zoom or like doing something to be a bridge for that information. It feels really good just to be in this simple conversation, to be being inspired and learning from what y'all are up to. Thank you so much for being on this journey, for being one of the many who have come into this call and in this lifetime when the collective is really hearing this call and where all these ancient tools and medicines and peoples are coming back into visibility and where it's more safe to do so. So just a deep honorance of the sacred collective evolutionary wave we are a part of here.
Thank you. Thank you for holding this space and for all of us for participating in this space. I'm going to log off now because I have another thing to get to, but it was really a joy to be here and to remember a little bit more.
Yee, thank you so much for coming through. It's so good to see you again after a while. I'm glad you've survived continually through the pandemic.
Yes, we're here. We're still here.
For real. And maybe we'll see you again at one of these spaces.
Yes,
Cool.
hopefully so.
Okay.
Bye. Have a good night.
Me too. Yee. Anything y'all want to share before we close?
Yeah, just gratitude. Thank you so much for this gathering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really beautiful question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, really precious. Dream come true for me. So thank you for making it real.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see y'all soon.
Beautiful. Good night. Bye.
Good night.